No niin, tervetuloa Turku Saatanalle 4 lähetykseen, jossa meillä on tällä kertaa vierailulla ruotsalainen Hypothermia. Eli kylmyyden äärellä ollaan täällä Turun linnan luonnonläheisessä ympäristössä ja tässä meillä on 3 kaveria vieraalta maalta komeissa asuissaan ja otetaan pienen englanninkielistä jutustelua kavereiden kanssa ja kysellään vähän, että mikä heillä on meininki. So, Hypothermia and you being the main guy, what can you tell us or the audience about the band? Why you are here?
Well, we are here to perform our first actual appearance here in Finland at the festival that's present for the 4th time, and we're holding a special ceremony designed for this event, which we have prepared paintings and seals for that we will open and close the ceremony with. And yeah, that's pretty much what I can tell you about it for the moment.
Okay, you're not a really typical black metal band in the sense that most guys or girls see the bands. What makes you different from other bands?
Well, there's no other band that sounds like us, and I think it's because we don't perform music like other bands do. We are just a tool that is made out of wanderings and the meditations, and it's intended for meditations. So it's for an audience, it's more in that vein that instead of entertainment, we are something they can use to shape their spirits instead of just being a physical consequence for their bodies.
So would it be okay way to describe you more of a ritual band than an entertainment?
Absolutely.
We are running a cult at the same time, an organization, so in certain ways the music is more like a soundtrack to the cult as well, or to our organization basically, and we're developing sigil magic systems and also preparing books, and it's a bigger concept than just the music, and that's why we tend to stand out in a way as well.
Okay, so what can you tell us about cult? How much is secret and how much is okay for us to know?
It's basically esoteric, but we tend to work with our own made system of sigils and of runic magic and shamanism, and we're also it's very very hard to get into how deep it's more of if you would be involved yourself, the gates would open a bit more information wise regarding that, but it's much more than music, and it's a bigger system that we try to focus and to shape.
Okay.
Which has its roots in hypothermia and in what Kim started, but it's turning out to be much more than music at this moment.
Okay. Could it be called religious, or is it more like
yes, absolutely, complete fanaticism.
Okay. So how does your everyday life fit into this kind of lifestyle with rituals and being a band?
Well, the music part is ritualistic when we record, and I think Kim could speak more about the recording parts of it. But it's very ritualistic when it comes to when we try to manifest it, and the way we use our bodies as a vehicle for the unseen forces, basically.
Okay, so it was mentioned that since you are being more or less the head of this operation, it was said that your ways to record music or rituals is something of uncommon sort. Would you open this a bit for us?
Absolutely. The way that the music is composed at first is always in a whole concept. It's I don't touch an instrument to compose the songs. It's always manifested in my head, so I have a very clear idea of something before I even touch an instrument. and it's not until I'm finished with that I present the ideas for the other members here, so they can interpret it and get their own feeling for it. And when we record, since the beginning, it has always been all the instruments, all music is always live in one take. That's the only way that I think it's acceptable to do it, because it's a very honest way. There's no way to cover anything up, and we simply rehearse the ideas until we feel they are close to perfection, and then we don't rehearse them after that. I think we're one of the few bands in the world that never rehearse for a show. When we perform live, we don't rehearse because we don't need to.
And we need to become the organism together. That's why we tend to get into the states of trance. So it's not necessary to rehearse, because it's more of a channeling of a force that you can't rehearse that, because it's just a mental state of mind that you get into, and while you're there, you just see the results afterwards.
So it's kind of like an organic project.
Yes, it is, and we become limbs for each other, and it's I'm like the heartbeat, and Kim is the vocals of a great beast or a being that we become when we play.
Okay.
If I may, like, people ask us if it's a downside we can't rehearse. Because, for example, I live in a different country, how do you rehearse, they ask. But it's an upside that we don't rehearse, because we know that the moment is the only moment, and it's the moment when we're recording and when we're performing, and that's how it should be, the moment.
Okay, since you live in a different country and you don't rehearse, but of course it must make some obstacles or challenges for the band or project to stay together. How do you fix this or keep this going on?
I think it hasn't been so much of a challenge. We have enough ways to communicate in today's world. If organizers like the one from this event, it doesn't matter if they pay for 3 people coming from Sweden or 2 people from Sweden and 1 from Belgium. It doesn't matter, because there's so many locations we're going to, and Kim and I communicate on at least a weekly basis, and we know very well where we're going, and we communicate about everything that's going on in the band, so it hasn't been so much of a challenge at all.
Okay, let's turn it a different way. Are you an internet-dependent band?
That's a hard question to answer. We are dependent on communication. That communication happens to happen through the internet nowadays, but I wouldn't mainly focus it on the internet, no.
Okay. Question for you, Kim.
Yeah.
It was mentioned that you've done quite a few recordings in the past 15 years or so, and it's not like you are doing an album every few years, but very often. And you said that you are like putting these recordings into different sessions, how they are focused, and what's the concept and so forth. Can you explain these rather uncommon ways to release your material?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the beginning, since we have a very honest and open approach that is organic to our recordings, I felt that has to be manifested in the physical realm as well. That's why we divided different demos that was recorded at the same time over different releases, because they represented different moments of time and different rituals and different places that the rituals took place from, or that was the inspiration for the sound that became what others would refer to as music. And in the beginning it was also many of the releases were split releases with other bands that we felt a brotherly kinship to, so it was mainly bands from Sweden and Germany and Czech Republic that we have known for like a decade. And of course it's also people that we have met several times.
So is it hard to bond with other bands? Like, for example, you being Swedish, and they bring lots of Swedish bands, especially in the black metal scene.
Yeah.
how easy or how hard it is to find like comrades or kinship among this kind of very unique way?
Well, it's I haven't really thought about that much over the years because people just come to me.
So are you a kind of cult leader in that sense?
To some extent, absolutely.
Okay, so
it just happened.
Okay.
In a way, it's a way of incorporating them into our organization and ranks as well. So it might be the only physical way to see a link between us, but many of the bands that we do stuff with are actually organized in our organization as well. So.
Okay, have you found any Finnish followers yet?
I'm Finnish, but no one that lives in Finland per se. But we have in Mexico, we have in Germany, we have in basically all over the world. Some from Iran as well.
Okay, so there's no cultural boundaries in that sense.
We are creating our own culture, so we're not bound to any metal scene or anything like that. We're forging our own culture, and that's the point of it as well, because we don't feel that we fit perfectly with that culture, so it's up to us to forge a new one.
All right, that makes clear sense. So, final words before we close it in. What's it gonna be future for Hypothermia?
Well, we have about 5 albums and 2 EPs that's not recorded, and that's because of the way we record it. Some recordings are really hard to find time to make all the preparations. Because besides us 3, we have just recruited a bassist, and that's also something that's a bit odd maybe for some people, that we wait 15 years before we recruit a bassist for our band. The first decade or so almost, it was all just 1 guitar and drums, so we're expanding our band into an orchestra more and more for each album that will come, because that's the closest thing I can imagine being what if you walk through the woods in the night. It's a bit more complex than what just a few people can do with their instruments. We need a whole a range of orchestral instruments to manifest the different nuances that is present in the world that is around and beyond us. So this year we will focus on 2 EPs instead of the albums, because they are just too vast. It's
to be honest, we haven't been able to find a fanatic enough bass player, and now we did. So we need there's a special kind of human that needs to be present for, or so to speak. It's very important that they can incorporate our ideals, and maybe it took 15 years to find a bass player and we're just glad that it exists, because we were not sure it ever would exist, a bass player for Hypothermia.
All right,
yeah,
thank you.
Compromise.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes with you guys in the evening. Tässä Hypothermia. Kiitos katsojille. Palataan seuraavassa lähetyksessä.